Hello, everyone. Thank you for making time to attend this session. My name is Wamboi. I'm the marketing manager at Nairobi Garage, a premium workspace for innovative and growing businesses. We're co-creating this session with Metta, a club for entrepreneurial and community to connect, share knowledge, and bring ideas to life. So last year, Metta and Nairobi Garage came together to create the country's largest innovation community. We realized that with our wealth of connections within and around the innovation business community, it was worth joining forces to help create more partnerships between our members and more collaboration within the larger ecosystem. So part of our coming together was to launch an online event series that offered thought leadership on innovation and practical business advice from local and international experts with experience in the African market. The first session happened in September, and the title was The Future of Community Building. The takeout was that a community is defined as like-minded people coming together who have a common goal and vision, and pretty much that's what we're going to do today. And that strategic partnerships would be able to offer innovation and business communities the right kind of support, especially in this time during this pandemic. We also learned that hubs and co-working spaces are not obsolete, and that people do not necessarily need their own offices, but at least need a place to commune and to work. And finally, that there is value in coming together to work together so that we're all building on existing infrastructure, such as innovation and networks. So it's been months since we had that discussion. A lot has changed, yet a lot hasn't changed either, with us still being in a pandemic. But I feel that we are a slightly better place to have a conversation about the future. And so today's session is set to be very exciting. We're looking at co-creation and collaboration between communities, the what, the why, the how, and I'll hand it over now to Asha Mwilu, our moderator, to take us through it. Karibu, Asha.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for joining us. We're going to have a really brilliant conversation.
Did we lose Asha?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Technology. So, everyone, I'll take it to everyone to introduce themselves. We'll start with William, and then we'll go through as we wait for Asha to come back.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much, Wamboi. My name is William Chisoni, and I am the Events and Communications Associate here at Metta Nairobi, and happy to be here. Who's gonna go next?
Patricia?
Super. Thank you, everybody. My name is Patricia Okello. I'm the co-founder of Kayana Create, which is a community of female entrepreneurs based here in Nairobi, actually just right next to Nairobi Garage here in Kilimani. And I'm really happy to be here.
Fantastic. Ladies first, I guess. Mercy?
Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome. Finally, the sun is out. Thank God for that. My name is Kimalat. I'm wearing two hats today. I'm the Partnerships and Communication Manager for the E4 Impact Accelerator, and then also I'm the Engagement Advisor sitting on the board of ASSEK, which I'm sure I'll explain a bit more later on.
Fantastic. Joram?
Yeah, I'm looking outside and wondering which sun Mercy is seeing. Are you in the same city with me? Yeah, my name is Joram Mwinamo. I am the CEO of Sandbox. We are actually based in the same building with Patricia, CMS Plaza, just behind the center. Sandbox is a community of professional service providers who support SMEs to grow their businesses. And I'm also excited to be here with my compatriots from across the country.
Fantastic. James?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is James Odede, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lake Hub, which is an innovation hub based in Kisumu. Been around for close to about 7 years now. Wow, time flies. We are one of the very early ones to be set outside Nairobi, and it will be my pleasure to share some of our experiences. Thank you.
We're guessing Kisumu is not hot, as Mercy is saying?
No, I'm not in Kisumu at the moment. That's why you can see I'm cold, actually. I'm in Nairobi, taking this call from Nairobi. And I can't see the sun either, so maybe Mercy, we should come where you are.
Fantastic. Over to you, Asha.
Thank you. I am back. I got kicked out. These are some of the challenges that entrepreneurs go through, right? So I think this is like a really timely conversation. I am moderating this from Debunk Media, which is a startup that I founded 1 year ago. It will be one tomorrow. And I started from an incubation hub as well, from the Aga Khan Innovation Center. So I'm very excited to hear from Joram, from Patricia, from James, and from Mercy. So thank you for joining this conversation. I'm going to just go straight to it. And to all four of you, we all want to know, let's begin with the positive, what are some of the milestones that you feel like you've achieved or that have had significant impact in the ecosystem, especially from the early stages of your setups up until now? We'll go to Joram. Milestones from you?
The feeling the oldest would be picked on in terms of being in the space. Yeah, we've been in the space, I would say from around 2007 is when we began to look in the direction of entrepreneurship and innovation. Before that, we were largely a learning and development, youth development organization. And so I was running Wild International, which some of you may be aware of, is an entrepreneurship and strategy company. And it's under Wild where we started to do programs to support entrepreneurs. So we had cohort-based programs where entrepreneurs would sign on to come and learn the different aspects that it takes to build a business. So everything from, conceptualizing your vision, all the way down to, what systems and processes should you have in place. And we did quite a number of cohorts and had, I think, close to 550 entrepreneurs coming through our program. And so just, having been in the space for that long, we set up a physical space last year called the Sandbox. And so before that, we largely just operated an office and we would carry out our activities either in collaboration with the other hub spaces. I have literally, I think, held an event in every hub here, up to and including Lake Hub in Kisumu. We've collaborated in a program. And so when I look back, I feel like the industry has come a long way. First and foremost, I think entrepreneurship used to be a very could I say, abstract concept for many people, because unless you are a second generation entrepreneur, you had no support system around you. But over time, we've had different players coming into the ecosystem, from the loud pioneers, I have Nilabs and like, all the way to spaces and organizations that have been set up across the country. And so for me, just the number of entrepreneur support organizations that we have in Kenya today is already a huge milestone. There's an argument I usually have with one of my early compatriots as to whether this has done good for the ecosystem or not. But I'm like, I think it's an entrepreneurial venture even for us as support organizations. So we've gone learning. We've seen many people come up. I think there's hardly a county you can talk about nowadays where you will not find one form of entrepreneur support organization or another, because I've seen them all the way from Lions, Visit Hub in Lodwar, all the way to Lamu. You do have entrepreneur support spaces now. And so for me, that is a big milestone where we can literally find supporters across the country now.
Yeah, and you've said it right, like there's so many brilliant spaces opening up. I'm curious about Patricia, who runs a very unique one for women entrepreneurs, Kayana. Patricia, what are the milestones from your end?
Coming after Joram, man. We're very new in this space. We only opened our doors in 2019, just before the pandemic. And for me, it was really driven by a personal journey. I actually didn't really understand this space of of hubs, so to speak. So I didn't really do much research in it. All I wanted was a community where women can come together and share the entrepreneurial journeys. The reason I did this was I felt very strongly that women do business different. I come from a space where I believe in a spirit of abundance, so a lot of giving rather than taking. And I think this is just the natural core of who women are, who we are. We're nurturing, we're collaborative, we're consultative. And I was curious to see was it for real? Is this a real concept, or is this just a figment of my imagination? So thankfully, because of COVID, something good came out of that, in that it accelerated our journey towards forming the community of female entrepreneurs. More people were looking at latching onto something, maybe for their side hustles, or just somewhere where they can be hope, in this season of the pandemic. So it's been amazing in that regard, because things that we had planned to do 5 years later, we already had to just delve in quickly and go into it, including aspects like capacity building, which we hadn't really, decided to do that. We were very, very more event focused. So it was more face-to-face and, meeting each other and forming a community of trust, all those soft skills that I can see Joram looking at me like really bad. But yes, women, that's how we do business. So it's, in many ways, that was the focus. But of course, with the pandemic, we had to embrace technology. It was either that, we either embrace technology or we just go on hold until the pandemic is done, which clearly we can see it's here with us. So there's some aspects in terms of events that were put on hold, but in other areas of, going online and forming curriculums and programs, those we accelerated and already have seen more than 150 women go through some of our programs. So it's been great. It's been a great season of learning in the last, I would say, 12 months. And some of our milestones I would consider is the fact that we have passed 150 businesses through our doors.
That's a really good number, 150. Claps to you guys. James, how has it been with Lake Hub? Everyone is talking about, starting something outside of Nairobi where it's very saturated. What has been the milestone for you?
Well, the first milestone is what you've just said. People are speaking about other places other than Nairobi. I think that is a big difference in the sense that when I was starting Lake Hub about 7 years ago, and I introduced myself that, hey, I'm doing this in Kisumu. The first question would be like, Kisumu? What? Shouldn't you be fishing or doing something of that sort? So there was very little focus. I used to say that we had very little face time, and I think Corona has kind of tried to level the ground, because you're meeting every important people online anyway. Nairobi guys, Joram could just cross the street to meet the Microsoft CEO, so he'd pitch his idea and come back with an answer. But if you're based quite far off from where the center stage of things happening, it takes quite a bit of a hustle to tell your stories and give our justifications why entrepreneurs exist here and why they need support. So I think it's sometimes I remember for me, I would just come from Nairobi for a very important meeting. I just get back to Kisumu, and then the meetings I've been chasing tells me come tomorrow. I'm like, dude, I just came from Nairobi. I cannot come back for another meeting. And if you see that this is really somebody you want to work with and you need their support, you may just hop to the next bus and get back and talk to people about this. So initially it was just really about pitching, telling the stories that, hey, there's more happening in other places, pay attention to us. What kind of support can you offer, and what value can we bring to the table in the innovation space? But now what has changed right now is people have realized that, brilliance can exist anywhere, and opportunities may not. So we are looking into a scenario where people want to get the best, innovative ideas regardless of where they're located. And we are happy as Lake Hub that we've done some work to prove that there are brilliant Kenyans who want to start businesses, and all they need is the same amount of support that are being accorded in other areas. So for me, I think that's definitely a big milestone, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing unicorns from the lakeside. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next time they ask you why you're not fishing, tell them you're fishing for entrepreneurs, right?
That's true.
Okay, but so Mercy, let's go to you. What are the milestones from your end?
I think I can also give a bit of like background history. So E for Impact stands for Entrepreneurship for Impact. So we've been running different programs for entrepreneurs, mainly the MBA program. And in 2018, we decided that we wanted to focus on a different segment of the market, right? So focusing on those growth stage enterprises that actually needed support to scale up. And even at that time when we were coming up with the concept, this is way back in 2017, there wasn't a framework or a guideline or some sort of hand-holding, you know, like how do you start an accelerator? What are the things that you need to ensure that you have? You know, so there are many things that we had to kind of benchmark from the international community, and that was actually lacking within the Kenyan space. So fast forwarding, I think also at that time also there were many discussions that were ongoing about forming an association for all these incubators and accelerators, co-working spaces, maker spaces, and many other different forms of communities for entrepreneurs. And so actually, the good thing is that I'm speaking after all these great guys have spoken, because many of us actually were part of the founding team of ASSEK, which stands for the Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya, which actually brings together all the different and entrepreneur support organizations under one umbrella, just to kind of champion for like favorable policies, and then also looking at how we can collaborate better and increase also the investment within the Kenyan space. At the same time, also supporting entrepreneurs on a more holistic level, because as you realize, even for Impact, there are things that we can do, but then also we realize, oh, we actually need to plug in Lake Hub to support on this, or Sandbox, we can actually utilize some of their resources, or Kayana. So the different things that we can actually plug into and support, and that's how actually ASSEK being formed now. We're actually celebrating like we're 2+ years now, which is amazing. And that's a really huge milestone, because we've seen a lot of investments coming in. Like, for example, currently we're supporting 4 hubs that have actually received like contractual jobs, which are being paid through GIZ project. So we're able to actually sustain some of the existing members with some of the financial investments that we're getting in as an association that actually trickles down to the different members.
Oh, sounds good, Mercy. And we're going to talk about collaboration in this space. But you know, you've all talked about all the great things that are happening. Of course, we know there are also challenges. Patricia, you spoke a little bit about it, just starting in 2019, and then COVID strikes. What are the big challenges that you're facing? And we can start with Kayana, because you mentioned a few. So what are the main challenges that, and how are you navigating them? What are the solutions to those challenges?
Okay, I can say that the big thing for us was, of course, because we were only a year in, and as I had said, we were mainly event focused. So we were looking at people coming into the space and then having experts, you know, have conversations with them in different spheres, be it HR, be it taxes, finance, etc. So it was very, very heavily face-to-face. The model was very face-to-face oriented. But of course, when COVID came, we had to pivot quickly to going online. And of course, the programs were not designed for that. So we had to start, you know, come back together and see, how does it work? How does this online space, Zoom, work? And then see if the community would then latch onto it. Thankfully, of course, it was happening across the board. But so before this Zoom fatigue happened, we had a number of sessions together. And then learning now, as time goes by, about the hybrid model. We know that human beings we like to meet, and we like warm bodies. So we now discover that we can have hybrid models where we have maybe 1 or 2 people within a room, so that the energy remains the same. And then, of course, more people latch on online. Some of our most popular sessions have been with KRA, and that has worked out really, really well, because then we were able to, you know, use technology, both YouTube and Zoom, etc., and have and speak to a broader audience of people who initially we wouldn't have expected. Our space is pretty small, and we usually can only take about 25 people at a go. And using technology, of course, we've now managed to reach a lot more people. We've also seen kind of like our design was membership based, so people actually pay a membership fee to be part of the community. And we had to suspend that in 2020, and we just made it an open session. So there was no income coming in from subscriptions, but we continued to offer, to basically offer our services, almost for free, I would say, most of the time. So that changed. We also had a masterclass model where we had planned to have very specific conversations within specific sectors. We also suspended that temporarily. And for example, we would have somebody in the beauty industry come in and speak to businesses that are specifically in that area, and then ask quite intimate conversations, which we couldn't have if it was recorded. So we've kind of like put that on hold as we as we figure out, we navigate how else can we have very intimate and candid conversations where the person or the entrepreneur who's speaking feels free enough to say it without, the fear of the conversation being recorded. So those are some of the things, that's some of the challenges that have come up. But all in all, I think we've grown our community considerably with the use of technology. I can't emphasize it enough. And although we may have had to get rid of some aspects of our plan, I think it's still working pretty well, and we're growing as a community.
Yeah, thanks for that answer, Patricia. Joram, is this something that you relate to, some of the challenges that Patricia has mentioned? I mean, because you've been in the space longer, has COVID been like the ultimate challenge, or do you feel like you've faced others before? What's the experience on your side?
Yeah, election years, the worst to go through, and we have one coming up next year.
Yeah.
Because in election years, people tend to slow down decision making. So if you have new projects coming up, those tend to slow down. Our challenges have been a bit different. The one I relate with is taking things digital, because we had very physical interventions with a lot of people, and it's still a challenge to date. There are some people who still want physical, while digital may be a lot more convenient and useful. So we have had challenges getting a lot of our experts converting their interventions with clients, like coaching, training, onto the digital space, and continue to get paid for it. Somehow people have a different view towards how that should work. And again, because people had to work from home, we found that interactions between the people in the community have been a lot more reduced. So I would say it takes longer to get things that require brainstorming, creativity, or things that would have otherwise happened in a spontaneous manner now have to be planned. So you find, creative ideas are not moving as quickly as they used to. In fact, at times you just find people get frustrated and they're like, let's have a physical meeting, and hack through this. It will happen a lot faster. So technology still does have its limits. Because you're not sure if someone engaged in a meeting or are they on their phone. They're behind a blank screen, they've hidden their video, despite being forced not to hide their videos. So getting used to the new way of doing things has definitely been a challenge. And also you'd find that there's something about physical events that you just can't replicate in the non-physical events. So even though we are able to reach larger people, like we had a conference where we were able to reach about 300, which would have struggled, to pack into a room. But you still find there's something missing. There's those coffee break conversations where you bump into people. There's after session conversations that don't happen anymore. So the adjustment during this time is definitely a challenge. But I would say that the ups and downs of the economy also tend to be a challenge. So even as we go into an election year plus COVID, we're not sure what to expect, coming next year.
Yeah. James, is this something you relate to? And we're also aware now that Kisumu and the counties that neighbor Kisumu, you're having a wave, a serious one. And now you even have a new curfew, a different one from Nairobi. Is this particularly challenging, or are you okay because you run a tech hub? I mean, you guys are the tech guys, so you should be fine, right?
No, the challenges of COVID, I think they cut across. It might be even more tricky for us in the sense that as LakeUp grows, we want to reach a lot more people who are not even in the urban settings. And when you start doing that and you're doing things digitally, you realize that we're not equal in this country in the sense that our access to gadgets and access to internet. So people who are really interested, they're passionate about whatever program you're running to support them as entrepreneurs, but they don't have the gadgets that would enable them to participate throughout such programs, and even conducive environments also. If people have to work from home, this working from home thing, I think, is an elitist kind of working arrangement. There are some homes you can't work really just because of the setup and how many people in that room, how many. Yeah, so I think this working from home also, they're just a group of people who can really afford to do it. So that has definitely affected us. And also, if you think about COVID, it's just the uncertainty of things. A lot of the time, people make business decisions months in, or quarterly, or sometimes annually. But with these changing restrictions, with the waves up and down, and that definitely has also affected us negatively. But I also just want to highlight some of the other components that I think have become quite a challenge, which is the financial model of running a hub. Still remains a challenge for us, especially for an nascent ecosystem that we're building. It's one of those things that we're still grappling with. And we also established that entrepreneurs' needs change quite a lot. And hubs do not have the resources and the means to adopt to those changes as quick as they arise. Or rather, it will take a lot more resources to respond to those needs as they arise in the community. So we tend to address this using collaboration, so that you don't always have to have the answers, but still there's a need for us to, as hub, develop a means to be as agile as the market is. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, which is interesting because I see someone in the comment section asking, as an innovator, where do I go to in case my space is not responsive enough? How do I move to a hub that is more responsive? I wanna one of you can take this when you're probably taking a question, but maybe to Mercy, can we talk about the whole aspect of collaboration? How do you get the community to work together? And especially with the challenges that Joram, Patricia, and James have mentioned, it's COVID time, we're grappling with financial models. Everyone is just struggling to stay afloat. So how do you speak about collaboration in times like this?
Thanks, Asha, for that question, and also to my colleagues on the call. I think it's something that we also have to be empathetic about, because when the pandemic came, it came across the entire world. So don't feel bad or disheartened that it's actually it's not only your hub or even your own business if you're an entrepreneur that it's actually going through this way, right? So most people were saying that with the COVID pandemic, now everyone has a blank slate where they can actually begin. So the big boys and the small ones now are all playing at the same level. I think even as ASSEK at the larger association side, I mean, we had many projects that were coming in, like from international donors, and that suddenly was stopped, or we had to restructure the engagement, so forth. And so you have to now start thinking about challenging your current business model. So even as a hub, yes, for example, you are like what Kayana was saying, like, you're just producing or doing more of events. But now with the pandemic, there's actually an opportunity to see, oh, can I actually tap into another customer segment? What can I increase my service offering? Can I partner with another person? Because even for E4 Impact, like what we did, we also went through the same downward spiral. But for us, what we see is the power of actually having partnerships and collaborations with other hubs or other stakeholders, right? So for example, like now going back to our founders and saying, can we now shift the program online? But now we understand that entrepreneurs need a bit of data. right? Because they have to have data bundles to log in. You can't just say, hey, let's go online, and they don't have access to the internet. So we had to kind of find a way of restructuring the budget. Of course, it hurts a bit of our income, but we actually are here to serve the entrepreneurs and actually be able to service or facilitate them to actually be able to attend online trainings or any events that is going. So even as a hub, how are you thinking about your service delivery? Is there a way that you can actually restructure your current offering and even to do that, or even partnering with larger bodies, like for example, I know Liquid Telecom also had a program for startup and SMEs. I know also Oracle had the same for SMEs. So also been just trying to see how can we collaborate even with corporate partners, even if we don't get the cash per se, but we can actually get the subsidized services, right? So if entrepreneurs or even hubs can actually see this as an opportunity to really now get the access to services, which they can now provide within their own hub, but then also extend that to their entrepreneurs. That would be a better way of looking at that.
Yeah, but how do you actually do it? Maybe Joram answer this. How do you break the silos? How do you get, is there a repository, for example, for that entrepreneurs can go to and know, look, there's Soundbox and there is Kayana and there's Lake Hub and there's this, and this is what I can get from each of the hubs. How do they work together? I mean, how do we really foster that collaboration so that as an innovator, I know this is where I can go and get the community. Yeah.
So I mean, just as Mercy was talking, I was thinking towards the end that one of the things we haven't done very well as an ecosystem is in pointing out who's good at what, who's strong at what. So to the market, we all look like we are all doing the same thing, because people just look at us as spaces or as hubs or as incubators, accelerators. So we've not done a very good job in saying, you know, if for impact is good in programs that do with X, Y, Z, I'll not mention. I have a feeling I know what they are good at. You know, when you go to Lake Hub, maybe they have a bent in this, or when you go to Kayana, you know, they have a strength in the other. And so what tends to end up happening is that on the market side, somebody comes into one of the spaces, they don't get what they're looking at, and then they make a blank statement that, you know, all hubs are not useful. But maybe, you know, that hub was not tailored to address their strengths. And also, you know, for us as enablers, we've also been going through our own evolution of finding out what we can be good at and what we are not good at. There are many of us who've taken up projects at some point where you're just like, no, maybe we shouldn't go in this direction. Like, you know, for me, if I saw a project around, say, green or energy, I would not go anywhere near it because that's not my strength. But there are, you know, 2 or 3 other hubs that have built a strength according to that. So I think we can do a much better job. I've actually just seen an RFP going out for someone to map the ecosystem from one of the ecosystem funders called Agidias. And I think, you know, through something like this, it will be good for the market to just have an idea that if I need X, I can go. If I'm early stage, I can go to this, you know, particular one. If I'm later stage, I can go to this. If I am growing, I can go to the other. We can do a much better job at communicating what people are good at. The fact that we are also going through our own challenges of sustainability sometimes also make it hard to collaborate. I think at the beginning there used to be hostility where we would see each other as competitors towards the same funds. But as time has gone on, we have found that, you know, different players are becoming stronger at different things. So if I was to talk about the sandbox, one of our biggest strength is the professional services behind supporting entrepreneurs. If you want a lawyer that can support a startup, we have that. If you want, you know, a marketing consultant who can support a startup. So in many spaces, you find that we can now collaborate with Growth Africa or E4 Impact or Kayana, where maybe they're running the program, but when they need, you know, specialized experts, they come to us. So, you know, that specialization now is what is allowing for more collaboration. And the deeper we can go into our specializations, I think the better for the entire industry, because
So I think we've lost Joram there for a minute, but I'd like to go to Patricia, just piggybacking on the last point that Joram was making. Sorry, Joram, we lost you just briefly there, but I think we got most of what you were saying. I want to throw it to Patricia. So as we try to map out the ecosystem, who are the players, what are they doing, what are they offering? There's a question, and I think one of the participants, Anne Gitari, has also alluded to something that I wanted to ask. How the needs of the innovator, they're currently changing, right? So how big are your spaces, and how do you cater to those needs? So what strategy do you employ to ensure that now it's COVID, things have changed, people need different things from what they needed in 2019. So how are you addressing the needs of your innovators?
So first of all, I have to say that variety is the spice of life. That doesn't change as in life and as in business. We're not going to pretend that we're offering one hub is going to be all things to all the entrepreneurs. I think that's the first thing that I would speak about. My background is in branding and graphic design, and we always say you must know your avatar. What is your niche market, and what does that market require of you? And I think as long as we're focusing on our niche markets, and for example, for us, we focus on women, but not only women, we're talking about women whose businesses are in ideation or are pivoting. And that remains our niche. And then channel through as they go through our programs and our offering, of course, they're growing. We can't remain, they won't remain in that space. So it's imperative for us to form collaborations with other hubs. I mean, I just really love the way we work with Wild. And, I think you have to do that. The collaboration is there because you'll have to move your entrepreneurs into the next step of their natural growth as a business. So having many hubs is not really the problem. It's probably what you're saying is just trying to offer this everything to your entrepreneurs is where the main problem is, yeah? We're deeply in Kayana, we really, really deeply believe in collaborations. I mean, almost, I would say in the three things we offer, which is just community and it's growing capacity and collaboration, the three hold the same weight. So we have to keep growing in collaborations. We have to meet other players within the industry. I remember when Joram received a bid and he forwarded it to me for me to apply, because when you're sure what field you're in, even when you're applying for money, you're not going to apply for the same thing because okay, this one is for Pat, this one is for Mercy, this one is for Asha. So it's the same thing, I think, when it comes to hubs and to business and to entrepreneurs specifically. Once you understand your niche, then you will know that the offering of one community is what works for you at that time and at that stage that you're in life and in business. So I think for me, that's the big thing. We're not trying to offer everybody everything. We are, like I say, the nursery school for businesses, for women who are toying, and women, we can toy with an idea till kingdom come. We are kind of like the people who whip you into place and say, hey, this is what you should be focusing on. These are the things that you need to be doing to get your business registered, to get your business trading, to understand your marketplace, etc. Once you have grown, we move you to the next, person who can give you the offering for you to grow and build your business. And that's what we continue to focus on. We use, of course, also multiple medias. So because I think aggregating and disseminating information is also quite a big deal. So we focus a lot on media. We have a couple of magazines that are specifically focused for home businesses. And we have to speak to experts in those areas. So we cannot operate in a silo as Kayana. We must speak to James and know what's happening in Kisumu. We speak with countrywide hubs that tells us what's happening at the coast. And we offer them as experts to write articles in our magazines, and then we disseminate it widely, not only within our community, but hopefully within their own communities as well. And that's how we hope to break these silos that seem to be coming up when it comes to hubs, but are not necessary. I wouldn't call them silos. I think it's just people focusing on their main areas, and then how can we then work together to disseminate the information and stop looking at each other as competitors, but more of collaborators.
Right. Thank you, Patricia. James, how do we, from your perspective, what needs do innovators need? How are you bridging those needs? Maybe let's start from there.
Yeah, so innovators, entrepreneurs, they have different needs at different stages. We have people who are still thinking of starting a business. We have people who are launched their business, registered it, found a problem that they're solving, but they don't know how to go about it, all the way to people who are going on IPO, who I think they're sorted. So our focus as LACAB really is on young innovators. We want to support as many young people to start businesses, launch businesses, and grow. And the intention is as an alternative to employment, so that they can employ themselves and also employ others. And we have found ourselves in a position that we want to build our expertise on bridging the gap and the challenges young people have when they have businesses. One of them is they have no savings, they have no work experience. It's different from somebody who is an ex-Safaricom, ex-Google, have some savings, things like that. So, and how do we address those challenges? And a part of the solutions that we've had is mentoring comes as a key role in that. Somebody who has no professional experience but want to set up a business which will need a professional angle, the best way to get them up to speed and level them up in terms of their skills is providing mentorship. And LACAB is not a mentoring organization, so in that case we're going to partner with another organization that specializes in mentoring entrepreneurs. And the second component is they don't have savings, so they don't have any credit score that can earn them loans. As a matter of fact, they probably banned in all those mobile loan service providers. They probably already blacklisted. So financial literacy becomes a major component and a need for them accessing funding for their business. And for the past 2 years, we've been in the process of setting up expertise in the area of crowdfunding. And to date, we've helped young people raise close to 10 million Kenya shillings through crowdfunding. And this is just helping them look within their networks. People who are, if you package your idea properly, they'll be willing to, throw in 100 shillings, 500 shillings, 1,000. How does that come up to 1 million shillings? So for you to start your business. So those are unconventional yet existing structures in our communities to support them get the amount of funding they need. And we also have a niche in the tech space. So how do we leverage on our network of software developers to help you get your first MVP out without spending a lot of money? So those are the approaches that we've used so far in the area that we focus on.
And I mean, hearing that, even listening to you, James, and hearing that an entrepreneur can come in really green, no experience, no savings, and you really have to hold their hand right from the beginning. Maurice Otieno has left a comment, and I think it's partly a question, which is, I want to throw this to Mercy. So you need these communities, but nobody wants to pay for it, yeah? So how do you sustain these hubs when the community needs so much? People need to come in and find a functioning hub. So how do you pay for it, Mercy?
Wow, you're throwing the money question, huh? It's always the biggest, it's always about the money. Show me the money, show me the money.
Show us.
So just like going back to why ASSEK was formed, and I think many of my other colleagues have alluded to this, is that there was no big brother per se in the ecosystem that actually would speak about the challenges that the hubs are going through, because anyone who goes out of their way to start an incubation hub, accelerator, co-working space, etc., they've seen that the entrepreneurs need this, right? So it's actually, you start that hub or innovation center based on an actual need that is there. But the challenge is always in how do you sustain it, even as you're growing, or even building your team, or even wanting to scale into other regions like Kisumu or other counties within Kenya. And so one of the things that we're currently doing is that we have a good partner with they're called Venture Lift, and actually they have a good pipeline of investors who are based in the US. And so we're now trying to grow the diaspora engagement, because we do have lots of Kenyans who are saying, hey, I want to support a Kenyan entrepreneur, but I'm also based in the US or even in Germany. How do I do that? And so we have we're trying to see how we can actually develop this diaspora engagement programs. And even the current one that I was talking about, the GIZ one, is that we contracted 4 hubs to actually support entrepreneurs on the ground. And so with that kind of boosting them in terms of like cash flow, they would be able to actually afford maybe the membership fee. But then also looking at the membership fee that ASSEK actually charges is like 10,000 Kenya shillings per year. And we really strive to give you value of that. We're also trying to see how we can subsidize that in terms of giving out services or even bringing in other bigger players who would be able to support the innovation hubs. The other gap that also we have seen at a macro level or helicopter view is that also the hubs, they're lacking some sort of key structural components, like in terms of business processes, in terms of capacity of the team, even lack of team members actually to run the specific hub or innovation, and then of course lack of access to capital. So what we're trying to do right now actually is to design something what we call a member engagement framework, where now would actually plug in the members to actually drive this agenda forward. So yes, I can be sitting on the board and saying this is where we're going, but actually the specific hub managers or the innovation center leaders are the ones who actually know their key pain points. And by having a membership driven approach, they're actually able to co-create solutions that we can actually at the bigger level be able to get large funding that we can actually disseminate to our different members and hubs for that. So I wouldn't say don't look at the membership fee as something as a deterrent from you, but just try and find a way of plugging into the larger vision, because even right now we are working with 45 entrepreneur support organizations across Kenya, and we have also other MOUs with other partners who are also starting up their incubation hubs. So I think it's the right time to definitely plug into the association and benefit from all of this as we co-build this association together. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you've said I've thrown the money question to you, but I want to throw it to everyone else because, I mean, as an entrepreneur, people do know that you go to ESOs and you're taught the same things over and over again. And entrepreneurs feel that sometimes you are overtaught and underfunded. How are you innovating around this question? How do you get money, capital for entrepreneurs? Because that seems to be really like the big missing question. Joram?
Yeah. So I've been in this space and we've argued with even people like Maurice, and had conversations that go late into the night about how to survive in this particular space. And we have doubled with, different models. From models where you're subsidized by a corporate organization. So like we have a program we run where Facebook has basically funded the whole acquisition of digital skills. That's a program which I think we've literally partnered with maybe all those 45 people because it's something all their members need and it's value that they could have offered. We've had programs which have been subsidized by donor organizations. And so you find your GIZs, your UK tech hubs, and the like have come in to fund a program or subsidize part of it, and then we have had programs which I think the corporate sector is now increasingly coming into this space. We've just launched something with KQ that will be running tomorrow. In fact, tell your members to join, where they'll be talking about the aviation sector, and they're trying to see how they can plug in startups and entrepreneurs into their value chain. So we are seeing more and more corporate organizations jumping into this space saying, look, we can fund a program if entrepreneurs can come up with great ideas that can plug into our system, let them come on board. When you look at other countries like say South Africa, the US, you find that this space is quite funded by the corporate space, investors and government. We don't yet have that here. I doubt there are very few hubs that can say they've gotten money from government, except in this key program that's running right now. So we've had to look at alternative models. And for us, the thing that built into our sustainability was actually the professional service providers paying for the space that they take up. And then we give out services to entrepreneurs. The other challenge we've had is also just getting entrepreneurs to change the culture and start paying for services. And I think because a lot of the ecosystem was started on subsidized or services that were given free, then it kind of took root. But we are like, it's a service like any other, and our sustainability is dependent on the services that we are offering you as the entrepreneur. So just get into because sometimes you find some of those entrepreneurs are driving a very big car and in a large office and that kind of stuff. So we are like, they can afford to pay for the services. It's just that maybe they don't see it as valuable yet. And so we have been very keen on just trying to push a culture of pay for the services because it also helps you give us feedback and get better at what it is that we do. And we continue to offer better services and more efficient in the future, will be cheaper. So that's how we've been addressing it.
Right. Okay. Not to self. Don't drive a big car. So it's interesting. We ran a poll at the beginning of this, and we have some answers here. We asked, do you feel that local entrepreneur support organizations, hubs, accelerators, incubators do enough to find out what startups and entrepreneurs they serve really need? And this is interesting. 76% of you say more could be done, 15% say no, they don't, and only 9% say yes, they do. Patricia, the question of money, how are you innovating around capital, the issue of capital for entrepreneurs?
So, of course, I'm an entrepreneur myself, having had 20 years of experience in business. And I must say, looking for money for a hub is almost like putting on, it's just like an alter ego that I have to put on when approaching the same customers who I was doing work for, now asking them to give us money for entrepreneurs. It's almost like you have to be a different human being. But for us, what we've done in Kayana, we are pretty young, so we haven't received a chunk of money from any donors. In fact, I hadn't even really thought of fundraising as a co-component of our business, to be honest. I actually initially thought that we would just ask entrepreneurs to pay this 10,000 shillings a year that Mercy is talking about, and we'll be inundated with with entrepreneurs who are like, wow, that's value for money, less than 1,000 bob a month. Shock, horror, my goodness. Anyway, so we have created quite a bit of media, and I think media is because the businesses our two businesses, which is an events company and a branding company, we are deeply in media, and we use media a lot for the work that we do. So we just came up with very niche publications for entrepreneurs, and then have gone around to corporates and asked them to sponsor the publication, and from the money that we raise from that, we kind of we use it, of course, to disseminate the information, but we also use it for our running costs within the business. We've been very fortunate in signing an MOU with Citibank, and although our entrepreneurs are not their core market, they're eager to be seen as supporting an enabling environment for small and micro businesses. So we generally have had a lot of support, especially during COVID, when it comes to our activities. If it's something that is aligned to what they're doing on a global level, they were happy to help us with, through advertising in our magazines and in our events. So that's the model that we've used in the last, I would say, 13 to 14 months, where we've approached global organizations. So you kind of have to go and see what the organization is doing at a global level and the things that they're aligning themselves with, and then kind of bring it home now to the local representatives here, and then pitch to them a solution for that. So it's been an interesting journey for me, who came up from purely, I would say, purely selling, and now to just almost appealing to the individuals on the other end to support now us as organizations in terms of growing. We've had great support on that. Also, Visa came in quite handily when during their campaign of support small businesses, and we just pitched the same idea to them, and hey, we're working with small micro businesses, trying to keep our doors open, trying to keep the lights on in the organization. Are you able to fund some of the activities that we're doing? And for me, that has been the bulk of how we've kept the lights on, really, in Kayana, and with great support from some of these organizations that see the work that we're doing as in line with their own organization and efforts. So it's been a journey. It's really been a journey. Listening to Mercy and to Joram, I'm like, man, these guys had the cheat sheet. Us guys, we just knew people would come in and pay. So it's, I think also in terms of creating value, which is really I can't emphasize it enough. And entrepreneurs are watching every penny that they're spending. If it's not valuable to them, you cannot ask them to release to, even if it's 1,000 shillings, believe me, they're not gonna pay. But when it's of value, we've seen it even here in Kayana, having sold out events at 1,500, 2,000 shillings, if they feel it's of value. Then you can sit there and create an event or a product that you're like, it's gonna fly off the shelves and there's zero takers. So it's a really, for me, it's been really quite an experience, but certainly value. You have to listen to the sound of the river. What's happening there? You have to put on your entrepreneurial hat, even as a hub. You need to know where the pain points of I've heard you call them innovators is, and then offer them solutions based on that, because we are holding on to our cash, our money. It's really hard to get that money. And by the time you release it, you have to be able to take them a little bit further from the position they're at.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Patricia. And Joram, Mercy, please share the tips, right? I think, James, you'll find this interesting that 88% of our audience agree that the Kenyan startup ecosystem is very parochial, meaning that a lot of focus is spent on startups based in Nairobi. Over to you, James. How are you keeping your lights on, and how are you putting capital in your entrepreneurs' pockets?
Yeah, that is true, and it's not surprising that is the case. I mean, Nairobi is the capital. A lot of action take place here, and a lot of things. We're still in a country where, as much as we are trying to have the approach of devolution, much of our governance, of our approach on how we do things centered around the capital city. And I think it's only in the past 5 years that things are starting to go mashinani. So I think it's something that Nairobi really is the face of the country, you know. So if a lot of action is happening in Nairobi, the rest of the world will judge us by that progress. But I think we need to do more than just Nairobi. It's not that do less in Nairobi and do more everywhere. I think on top of doing everything that is happening in Nairobi, being a capital city, and there's a lot of businesses there, there's need to pay attention to what happens in other parts of the country. And especially if you're talking about reaching young people, who a trip to Nairobi or a move to Nairobi is like, a journey to the unknown. And a lot of people cannot make that decision just to come and be in Nairobi and, build their lives there. Maybe it's a different story now, but if you ask many people back in the day how they made it to Nairobi, it was almost a horrific experience on my first time in Nairobi and how I made my way around here. So I think we need to change that, and that is the case. For us, as far as how we are keeping our lights on, it's difficult to have one model that will work for every hub. So every hub, as we've been discussing, they have different niche. But when you talk about charging for services, I think it gets even trickier because there's just a lot going on in the market. If I am charging, even if it's 100 shillings a day for an entrepreneur to access my services, while the hub next door just landed $1 million funding to get things for free, and he has targets, he has targets, and you cannot convince him to charge, otherwise he'll not meet his targets for this funding. And the next hub is having something so valuable. So I think it's a conversation and a challenge we're going to continue having. Because all of us are targeting the same group of entrepreneurs, while our sources of resources are different. So therefore, our models are going to be different. But on top of that, if entrepreneurs are funded and they have money to run their organizations, then the conversations on charging them for services, I think, becomes an easier conversation. If they themselves struggling with funding, they themselves are struggling to keep their doors open, and they're not even able to implement their best ideas, then paying for space and paying for all these services, they'll always look for where they can find it for free. And I was just seeing what's going on in the country. I think it was in the dailies the other day on the amount of money Kenyans are spending in Ponzi schemes. I just think, man, Kenyans are rich. All of them are like billions of shillings, and some names appeared twice, meaning this person conned Kenyans, came back, conned again. So it was not just one-off. So it means Kenyans have money to spare. We just need to have a way of how do we direct that money to more meaningful ventures, like supporting business ideas that have potential. And if we can translate that to money in the pockets of entrepreneurs and not just relying on the international agencies, then hubs will have an easier way to charge, because these people will have money to pay for these services.
Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps someone with a really good business idea is not gonna take their money to a Ponzi scheme. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a really interesting proposition here by Willis Nyakeri, who says, one idea I have seen work is have an online course for innovators and entrepreneurs, a short how-to course for anyone trying to get into the space, enough to entice others to join the hub. So that's an idea. I don't know if it could work for any of the hubs represented here. But Mercy, can we talk about, we've spoken about challenges, spoken about money and collaboration. What are you seeing? How are you seeing the space evolving for the next 2 to 5 years? How does the future look like?
Yeah, thanks, Asha, for that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm here. Now, I was also looking at a bit of the questions on the chat. I think we're actually at the right time. COVID-19 pandemic really, it's been good for some and also a bit challenging for others. But I think if we shift our perspective in looking at how it's really accelerated technology adoption, even within the Kenyan space and across the world, now we're actually at a more advantageous point to actually grow the Kenyan economy. And then also, that also will help us with accelerating the innovations and also the different entrepreneurs that are coming up in the space. And so I think what needs to happen, and actually speaking from ASSEK point of view, is that we even had a meeting on this, was how can us as an association in itself digitize itself, right? So for example, like right now, we're actually planning on developing a digital platform, and actually alluding to one of the questions that was on the chat on how do we capture these learnings and case studies. So by having the digital platform, we're actually able to onboard the different member hubs that we have, which are around 45, and some of them are actually here. And the aim of that is to really create a knowledge portal, because without knowledge, then of course you don't know how to really design the right effective intervention, and then also seeing what are some of the best case studies that have actually emerged. So someone like Patricia or anyone else who's looking for how did someone do this, or what challenge, or how can someone get out of a certain challenge, then that will actually be captured on that platform. So that's actually ongoing, and that will be something beneficial, not just for the member hubs, but also for the different entrepreneurs, where even the innovation hubs can actually begin uploading that kind of knowledge onto the platform. And then also inviting investors to come on board as well, to kind of demystify all this investment jargon and challenges and the processes. Because actually, if you walk, like for us also, we support entrepreneurs going through an investment cycle that could literally take a minimum of even 2 years. So imagine if you're actually a hub that's actually trying to scale your impact and operations, what are some of the things that you can actually do prior, before even engaging an investor, to really accelerate your innovation or your space that you're operating. So there's a lot of opportunity that's coming up. And then also the other third thing is about the code of conduct. So the code of conduct is something that we also launched earlier this year, and it was actually to ensure fair play across the ecosystem. So as most of us who are innovation leaders, we've heard of many cases of entrepreneurs being swindled of their company. So you find an investor who comes in and they're offering them, let's say 10 million, and they're taking, like 98% of the company. And then that company ends up becoming $1 billion investment. So how do we actually protect our entrepreneurs or SMEs from those kind of bad practices within the within the market. So that code of conduct will actually cut across the different sectors, and then also ensure that there's fair play, not just from the innovators or investors per se, but also even within the hubs, right? How can we ensure that we have fair collaboration? Like, for example, like now Joram shared an opportunity with Patricia. How do you make sure that that continues in the good spirit that it is, and then also enhancing more collaboration by protecting these different players from the unfair practices on that one. The other one is on, like, in terms of investments. So now that we have increased collaborations with the different hubs, we have actually seen a bit of consortiums happening even within the ASSEK association. And that has actually brought in lots of money coming in from even the French, like from the embassies. We're seeing that from the international development organizations. So there's a lot of opportunities to tap into, but we just need to be more willing and collaborative to actually capture these opportunities and then now scale up. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mercy. Joram, as you tell us what you think is going to happen for the next 2 to 5 years, perhaps you could also take Vincent's question. And he asks, is the government or the state doing enough to support communities assisting startups to stay afloat in all the years that you've been in existence doing this work? Serikali imesaidia.
There has not been much that has been put towards that. I think right now there's a program that's government-driven called the Kenya Industry and Enterprise Program, KIEP. So if you check KIEP 250, there's an internationalization program there. There's about 4 components to that program. So that's World Bank money that has been given to support startups and growing businesses. This is the first time that we have such a program that has, involved industry players. In the past, we've had the Youth Fund, Women Fund, the Wezo Fund, but that money was directly channeled, to the entrepreneurs through government mechanisms, whether it was paid back or effective. There are question marks around that. However, we've seen an effort to engage industry players. As you know, there's a startup bill that, went out, and there was a lot of public participation around that. I think it was published, going through its first, second reading, and around that, there was an attempt to try and rope in government entities to support entrepreneurs more. Because I don't know if people know, but there's quite a number of government entities: Kenya Industrial Estates, KIRDI, Micro Small Enterprise Authority, and they're all over the place. They have facilities, they support entrepreneurs, whether it comes to research and innovation, KIPI for intellectual property. So we as industry players have been trying to see how can there be closer collaboration between industry players and government, and now with a body like ASSEK and a few other SME associations coming up, that is beginning to happen. However, I was going to say that, we are a very young entrepreneurship ecosystem. 10 years ago, if you started talking to people about term sheets, safes, and the like, nobody would know what you're talking about, and some people in the audience still don't know what I'm talking about. But these are terms that were, quite commonplace in places like Silicon Valley and other more established entrepreneurship environments. So I think we are still in our very early phases, and the time we're having an argument saying, it's going to take 20 years to get to a place where we're like Israel or Silicon Valley, where the systems are in place. Many of us, when we started, we also didn't know what we were doing, but we've learned along the way and become a lot more efficient at it. The next 5 years, I see a lot more consolidation. I see a lot more partnerships between hubs. Nairobi Garage and Metta led the way in doing this. We've been, for example, approached by a hub from Mombasa, asking if we can, collaborate and do some joint work. I see a lot more of that happening across the country. We've set up something called Sandbox Capital that's looking to bridge the capital gap. So that's something we'll probably be launching around August or thereabouts at the pace that it's going. And it's looking at bringing the capital conversation into the services conversation, which is what every entrepreneur is usually looking for, and they tend to have very high expectations. But I think as we build some of these vehicles and integrate them and collaborate, in the industry, we'll see much more better solutions being put out. I also see a lot more specialization. We have people like Vilgro who do medical, startups. And I think there's another one that also does medical startups. I think we're likely to see specialists coming up around things like agriculture, technology. We already have your iHubs and the like. So I see a lot more specialization coming up down the line, maybe where we even have like oil and gas, ecosystems or mining or, these kinds of things. I think they are likely to come up as we go along because the industry is getting smarter at raising money and at addressing the challenges that come about.
Right. Thank you, Joram. James, perhaps you could take this from Nekesa, who asks, how can off-grid locations make themselves seen? You could take that one as you tell us what your vision is for the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, thank you, Asha. I think we need to have a lot more knowledge sharing. My early observation is that things change quite fast. So sometimes even making reasonable projection become a problem. But if we are a closely knit community where there's enough exchange of ideas between innovators, between hubs and between government, then we can get better at what we do. There's one of the results of the polls where I think people who participated indicating that they did not believe that hubs did enough the challenges of entrepreneurs. So I think that's the direction that hubs have to go if we still have to remain relevant. So having a much more close relationship with the entrepreneurs that we serve so that we really categorically address their needs. I'm also keen to see that in the next 2 to 5 years, we will have a lot more high growth startups, companies coming from other parts of the country, and diversifying beyond maybe fintech and healthcare to see other high growth startups from Kenya in various industries that are still promising. We still don't have a lot of startups in agriculture that are making waves, especially founded by locals. So it's important that we also go that direction. Into the question by Nekesa, we have to be close to the people that we serve. So for us to reach quote unquote the off-grid communities, we have to be close to them at least for now, and so to understand what challenges are there and highlight some of the successes, and also just to send out the message that in such communities great ideas can still come, and that we can still find value supporting those communities. But above that, I think government must invest in infrastructure. We cannot talk about the fourth industrial revolution and Kenya having a role in it, and internet is still a challenge, roads is still a challenge, or rather, like right now, I was seeing that the government wants to increase the tax on airtime, meaning internet is going to be more expensive. Those are things that are taking us back. For us to reach all the communities in the country, technology is giving us a big opportunity to leapfrog, and we have to make it accessible to each and every person. So I think more lobbying of the government. And sometimes we don't need money directly from government. We just want fair policies so that entrepreneurs can thrive. ESOs do not have a lot of roadblocks when they're trying to serve their communities, and such kind of changes will make it easier to reach entrepreneurs, and will also make it easier for entrepreneurs to grow their solution. We cannot have scalable ideas that are only relevant to Kisumu. We cannot have entrepreneurs coming up with businesses that can only apply to Turkana. So when it comes to business, silos is an enemy. Openness is progress. So even if that business comes from Turkana, it should grow to be an Africa-wide business for it to make sense and for it to have a return on investment for its people. So that those will be my contribution, Asha. Thank you.
Thank you for those, James. And I will wrap it up with Patricia, 2 to 5 years from you as well. And please take Paul's question, who asks, what strategies have you put in place to help Mama Mboga and less computer-savvy solopreneurs to help them embrace digital technologies to scale their small businesses? And please, I've not asked you specifically because there's Mama Mboga in the question. Just because Kayana, deals with entrepreneurs from ideation stage. So how do you help such solopreneurs, Patricia?
No, I was not going to accuse you of that. So I think I'm going to just try and incorporate both questions in my answer. The first thing is, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we
can. You hear me?
You're good.
Okay, so something's come up on the screen, so I can't see you guys. Anyway, the thing that I would really push for is, and I know everybody has said the same thing, is the dissemination of information. And we can't stress this enough. We need to share information and share it freely. And I'll say that because you can see already across the globe, the model that is being embraced by organizations is what we call freemium models. Why is this an important conversation to have? Is that why are we recreating things that are available online already, right? Why are we investing so much of the money that we are already saying is so hard to find in creating something that is so unique only for Kayana? Those are some of the hurdles that are we want something that is just ours, yet there's something that's really good already out there that is for free. I'm going to talk about one particular app that just came out a couple of months ago, and it's very relevant for this Mama Mboga conversation, and that is her Ventures app, which was, was financed by the Cherie Blair Foundation. And man, that app has fantastic content. And I think anybody who's working outside of Nairobi, please get the people within your network, especially women who are selling even in the marketplace, to download it onto their Android phones. And it has, the models are just amazing, fantastic, and it's really just something that is interesting to play, but also a lot of learning and very Kenya-centric. So everybody, what did they say the penetration of mobile phones is across the country? It's almost like 90 or is it 95%? The other day I heard even somebody quote 100% penetration of mobile phones. So we know even the Mama Mbogas in the market are using the phones. They're using it maybe just to call and send messages. And I think the hubs outside of Nairobi is just to encourage them to download. If there's one app that they should download, is really the Her Ventures app for the season in which they're learning about their business, and then they can take it off afterwards. So this is one way to do it. Another way is in collaborations. We at Kayana already are working with an institution called Clean Start, who already is working with women who are in the marketplace, and they have already institutionalized what they call a table of support, which is an entrepreneurial product that they have. And if we work closely with them and we do trainers of trainers, and they're already using the app, then it's easy for them to talk to their communities on the ground on how to use these applications for their business, and to have just basically entrepreneurial conversations happening within on the ground. How I see, what I see happening in the next 2 to 5 years really is in this freemium model I've talked about again, and in tight collaborations based on a value system that that we encompass. I like what Mercy said about creating a code of conduct within us as people in the hub and in the ecosystem, but also aligning with people who have the same value system as yourself, so that you're not fighting on small things. I mean, when you're aligned and you're in the same value system and you're talking about the support you're giving to the entrepreneurs, and you're clear on each of you on your offering, I don't see why information can't be disseminated faster. And if we focus on the entrepreneurs and building their businesses, I think at the end of the day, our goals will all be met. So breaking the silos, disseminating information, and embracing freemiums, and sticking to our niches, I think is what I see happening.
Thank you. Thanks, Patricia. That was really good. To all our panelists, this has been incredible. I think we've tried to take all the questions that we had from our audience. So we've had Patricia Okello from Kayana, James Odede from Lake Hub, Mercy Kimalat from E for Impact, and Joram Mwinamo from Soundbox. All the links are on the chat box. If you want to find anyone, the LinkedIn and the websites for the respective hubs have been posted there. Thank you so much to Nairobi Garage and to Metta Nairobi for this amazing conversation. I wish we could go on for another hour because I feel like we're just getting warmed up. But yeah, you can catch this online. And if you have any follow-up questions or if you want to reach out to any of the panelists, please do so. You can get an email or one of their contacts on their LinkedIn profile that have been posted on the chat box. So thank you to all of you who joined this conversation. And Wambui from Nairobi Garage, over to you. My name is Asha Mwilu. Please also check out www.debunk.media. Shameless plug, but I'm an entrepreneur. I have to. So please check it out and like our pages. And yeah, see you in the next conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Asha. Thank you so much to the entire panel for actually taking the time to share your insights with us. And also special thanks to all the attendees who actually managed to stay with us, past our 4 o'clock deadline. Yeah, we've been left with gems such as like brilliance can exist anywhere, but opportunities may not, and that we actually need to work to make these opportunities available, and not just in Nairobi. We've also heard about how different hubs pivoted using technology and how those how they're actually making us those different programs frictionless, not just like taking them online, but how are these different hubs making it easier for these entrepreneurs and startups to kind of like take part in these programs easily. Tech has been actually a welcome alternative, but it hasn't been a perfect substitute for human interaction. That's something that we've picked up a lot, and one of the most brilliant points that actually came about from Joram was, we haven't done enough to clearly distinguish ourselves, and we need to better map the ecosystem, identify who actually are the experts in all the different services that we offer. So at this point, I'd like to, just say a special thank you to everyone who actually made this possible. Nairobi Garage, and who are a premium workspace for innovative and growing businesses. They provide high value and flexible office space solutions where networking and business support are all part of their package. Their spaces are designed with purpose to suit the needs of businesses at all stages, providing executive and private offices, co-working desks, event space, and on-demand meeting room facilities. If you want to talk to anyone at Nairobi Garage, I think feel free to reach out to Wambui via comms@nairobigarage.com. I think she has put in the details in the chat. And for myself, I'm a representative of Metta, and we are essentially a hub for startups, entrepreneurs, and innovators. And basically, we provide a platform where these different groups can actually come together, connect, interact, and collaborate. So if you'd like to reach out to Metta, please feel free to reach out to myself via william@metta.co. At this point, I'd like to say, thank you and goodbye. If you have, we'll actually be sharing links to this event, post after this. Sorry. Yeah.